Hey everyone, it's Sue here again with another episode of Does This Notion Really Work? And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Seam Fix Seam Ripper. So according to the packaging, it's manufactured by a company called Prim Consumer USA. Now they own a lot of different companies, one being Dritz. And Dritz is a company that really focuses on sewing and the crafting notions. Okay, so just for giggles, I did a really quick trademark search to see who actually owns the name Seam Fix. And it's a Swedish resident named Lena Wyman. And they did it in 2011. I don't know why, but I just think that's kind of cool. So no matter who's manufacturing it and no matter who's distributing it, because it does come in lots of different packaging, the person who came up with the name is Lena Wyman. So they come in a bunch of different colors, and I've even seen them come in a really tiny size, about 2 inches, and even a double-ended size, and that's pretty cool. But today we're going to talk about the original one, which is about 5¼ inches long. So what makes this seam ripper different from every other seam ripper on the market? Well, it's the plastic top and the little plastic bottom. They're basically erasers that are going to get rid of all those annoying little threads. After you cut the threads with any seam ripper, you're left with these little annoying leftovers. Well, that's what the plastic end does. It grabs onto those little threads and it erases them. Let's check it out. Okay, when you're finished, all you're going to do is treat the end of that seam ripper just like an eraser on the end of a pencil. So it's pretty easy to do. You might find that placing your fabric on a flat surface helps out a little bit. Again, just like erasing on a sheet of paper, you don't do it in the air. Okay, you're all done and it looks fantastic. All those little annoying threads have gone bye-bye. Thank you, Seam Fix. Okay, now that was a straight stitch, but what about a zigzag? There's even more thread and lots more annoying little bits left over. Let's check it out. Seems to be doing the trick. It just takes a little bit longer, of course, because of all those threads. Now what about all those little teeny tiny things? That's what the other end of the seam ripper's for. It's kind of like a even smaller eraser, and it helps get into those tiny little areas. Check it out. Okay, well, so we did straight stitch and zigzag, but what about a serger thread? We're not talking about just a top and a bobbin. We're talking about a potential of 5 different threads. In this case, we were doing a 3-thread wide. And so we ripped through the bulk of the seam, and now we're going to erase. Well, it seems to be doing the trick, even though there are better ways to remove a serge stitch. In a pinch, the seam ripper just seems to be the handiest way. And sometimes when you've made a mistake, you kind of forget all the right ways of doing something. But it definitely seems that the Seam Fix is doing the trick. It's really that simple. So now let's go ahead and take a look on how to actually use a seam ripper the proper way. There are 3 parts to every seam ripper: the point, which catches the stitches, the blade, which cuts the stitches, and that red ball, which protects the fabric. So there's a couple of different ways to use a seam ripper. Obviously, take the point and go through 1 stitch at a time. And honestly, that sometimes is the only way with some materials. But I'm going to show you a really cool trick with that red ball. In most cases, there's going to be one side where the seam really needs to be protected. So what you're going to do is place the ball facing the side that needs to be protected and just zip through, and you'll find that it removes probably about half of the stitches just by using the red ball. And then go ahead and use the eraser end of your Seam Fix. I wanted to be sure to point out something. Notice that the lid does not snap on the end because of the little plastic eraser. Just thought it was worth mentioning. So how much do these little guys cost? Well, I've seen them range anywhere between $4 and $9. I guess it just depends on the packaging, the distributor, maybe the time of year, but they all seem to do the same thing. Pun intended. Check your local dealer, ask the local fabric shops, but I've also given you a couple of links in the description below where you can get them right here online. I would have to say this is definitely my go-to seam ripper because of the extra perks that it has. And you know what they say about seam rippers? You're supposed to get one every 6 months, just like you're supposed to get your teeth cleaned. So maybe on the way home from the dentist, you can swing by the fabric shop and you can pick yourself up a new one. And maybe next time you get a seam ripper, it will be a seam fix. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this Does This Notion Really Work episode. And if you did, give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. Also, follow me on my other channels. I've got Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook. There you'll see a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And when you subscribe, it'll also give you notifications for the next time that I do upload another video. Well, until I see you next time, have a creative day. Bye-bye. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe below. And don't forget, you can also follow me on Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook. Have a creative day. Bye-bye.